2021. This year is all about modern love. In the past 2 years almost already, everything has gone online, from work to relationships to leisure to everything in between. And so love itself has changed a lot. Of course, you might have met someone on Tinder, swiping left and right, and you might be in contact with someone via text messages or sliding into their DMs. Maybe you even had a date on Zoom, for as good or as bad as that gets. And all of that and more we will explore during the IMPAKT Festival over the next 5 days. First, I would love to introduce Katerina Gregos, who is one of the curators of this year. She is a lecturer and an educator next to her job as a curator. And she is the artistic director of the National Museum of Contemporary Arts in Athens. In the following clip that you'll be watching, she will tell something about a couple of works in the exhibition. Enjoy.
Hello, I'm Katerina Gregos, and I am the curator of the exhibition Modern Love, or Love in the Age of Cold Intimacies, which has now come to Utrecht, to IMPAKT, and also to the Centraal Museum, following showings in the Museum for Neue Kunst in Freiburg in Germany and the Tallinn Art Hall in Estonia. So the exhibition basically examines the effect of social media, the internet, and the tech giants on our most intimate relations. So it's looking at how love has been affected by digital culture and its pervasiveness in our lives. And it's also looking into, of course, the notion of cold intimacies, which is precisely what has been engendered by, of course, the filter of the screen in our lives, and this increasing alienation, of course, that is the result of that.
Yes, and what I really like is that you not only bring the pieces to here, but also gave us an opportunity to go back to our own holdings, to our own collection, to find works we thought might be nice to combine with the works you bring to this room in our collection building. So it's always an excitement to have all these fresh new works presented here, and then like an old master from the Utrecht collection, or old master is not the correct way, but like a typical male modernist painter, Moesman, surrealist, to present in this context. So what we try to do as a museum is to talk with the curators and see what kind of works they would bring up to the floor in the context of this modern love. And the result is there, in the making actually. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, because I think one of the problems obviously that digital culture has engendered is short-termism, and of course amnesia of everything, including art history as well. So I think it's a really nice dialogue here between works from all ages, and actually it makes sense, because of course love is an ecumenical emotion. To me it's quite interesting that it's always been sidelined from sort of the artistic discourse, although it's such an important driving force in our lives. And here we have this example of this dialogue between Moesman and Marge Monko, who is actually right now in the process of being installed, who is an artist from Estonia, working mostly in photography. And this is an installation, it's a photography and sound installation called I Don't Know You, So I Can't Love You. And it's an installation which features a dialogue between two smart assistant devices, such as Alexa, for example. And these two smart assistant devices are having a kind of playful courtship, with the backdrop of these photos where you can see fragments of body parts. So obviously what this installation is about the dematerialization of our experience, the fragmentation of the body, and of course the interface of technology in mediating intimate relations.
Well, it's a little bit like that, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed.
Good. It's well, the aangekomene. The English title, I don't know actually. I have to look that up. But it's like about arriving. So as you can see, a dig is arriving. And he had a big show in the most prestigious museum of those days, the State Museum in Amsterdam. And this made a huge turmoil, of course, because people were shocked by having the centerpiece reserved for the male sexual aspect. And it's very funny. And what you just said about Marijn Bril was interesting, because if you look at his biography, it's a very turmoiled, very disrupted man who never had the opportunity to have a real relationship with females. So his paintings are full of kind of, you know, like bondaged female figures. And this one is almost like funny. Hey, here I am without the rest of my body, even though it is based on a very classical principle of naked studies, you know, to improve yourself in painting. And then the funny detail again, and that's also what you can see at Sanam's Katibi's piece, of course, the shell again, and also the detailedness of like this little snake, which is instead of the penis upright, here it's down. And you know, there's a lot of playfulness in it, but also provocative, especially for the 20s of a century ago.
But given the fact that it's 100 years old almost, as a painting, it's an interesting take on perception, self-perception actually of the male body.
He refused to call them self-portraits, except for one. But if you look at it,
it is a self-portrait, of course.
Inevitable.
But it's also kind of a very stereotypical representation of manhood at the time, because I mean the fact that it's cut off means that, of course, you know, the whole symbol of masculinity, the penis, is completely divorced from the heart and the brain. Which is, of course, we still have the hair. Which is of course what's missing now in the age where men are allowed to express their feelings, and they are also more empathic, and they are also feminists, and I guess that predates that in a very, very obvious way.
Very obvious way. Yeah. Although he was, if you, there's on YouTube actually quite an interesting documentary on him, told by the 3 wives, girlfriends he had in his life, who talk about their relationship. It's extremely interesting. If you Google 3 vrouwen Moesman, I'm not sure if it's subtitled, but it's very interesting to see.
But to me, this is a piece about identity.
For me,
it's more about identity than it is about sexuality.
Yeah, but his complete oeuvre is also about impotence. If you, like, there's always a little, what's that in English again? Where you water taps, always down, always closed. But he, of course, refused to put that meaning, I put in it now, to kind of accept that or recognize it.
So here we are at Impact Space, where the exhibition Modern Love, or Love in the Age of Cold Intimacy, begins, before moving on to the Centraal Museum. And this work here is a work by Hanna Totiki, who has several works in the exhibition, both here at Impact as well as at the Centraal Museum. And Hannah's works are actually looking into the way that technical apparatus, but also fashion accessories, clothes, impact social relations and also economic relations. And this work here is called Touch Screen Protection Glasses. And basically it's part of a series that also includes other works, smartphone protection rings as well, which look into the obsessiveness with which we are attached to our mobile phones and our tablets and our screens today. So these are actually glasses that are keeping us from our impulses, our impulse to constantly look at the screen. So when you put them on, you actually your line of vision is blocked, so you can't look at your smartphone or your tablet or your screen. And much in the same way, there's another work in the exhibition that also deals with this obsessive compulsiveness to kind of constantly look at our messages, smartphone protection rings, which actually put a sort of barrier on your finger so you can actually not tap onto your phone. And these two works are kind of, well, they're intended to be used together. So if you cannot look and you cannot type, therefore you are protected from being your own worst enemy. Okay, so I'm sitting in an installation by Hannah Totiki. Hannah is an artist based in Copenhagen, whose work comprises sculpture, furniture, fabrics, fashion, all with a view of looking into how technology and electronic apparatus actually influences social and economic relations and exchange. Come and sit, Arjen, and we can talk. So maybe you can come to the discussion. Well, I'm seeing Arjen now. Are you recording?
Yes.
Yeah. See, it's. I mean, just the fact that you are sitting framed by this square creates a completely different sense of your representation as an
It
image.
also makes it a bit more unreal, because now it looks like I'm watching a computer screen. Like,
Yes.
I know you're there, but it also feels a bit like watching a very
I mean,
routine screen.
the effect is actually quite incredible,
Yeah.
because it completely changes the way that we perceive each
Yeah.
other. But also I was thinking about the endless meetings that we've had via
Yeah.
Zoom. and how this also takes away the nuances of communication and how it flattens out everything. And even though we're not behind a computer, but we're even here in the real world, the fact that this cutout exists between us really changes the way that I look at you.
And it's art also creates, I mean, we're in the same bubble, in a way, that's also like...
And it's interesting because, of course, we use these things, but we actually very often don't take into consideration how they change the sort of fine lines that exist in interpersonal communication. You know, the small things that make intimacy possible, and that are flattened out or taken away by sort of mediated interaction.
And I mean, all art work have this like obstruction of what we're so used to do with digital media, swiping on our phones, or being very much involved with your little cell phone screen in front of you.
And also, I quite like the fact that this filter that she's placed actually makes our bodies disappear, so that we exist as torsos.
You make it blue also.
So I'm standing in front of a work by a young Belgian artist, Marijn Bril, who is a performer and whose work in different media questions and challenges heteronormativity and looks into queer identity. And at the same time, Marijke's work is also concerned with the imagery that the internet propagates. And this is an ongoing series called Niche Content for Frustrated Queers. And there are memes actually that are constructed by the artist. Memes, we tend to consider that they're actually quite superficial, but they say a lot about society, and they say a lot about how young people look at themselves. And this series here actually looks into the pathologies behind performativity and self-performativity on the internet. So as you can see here, there's a me everywhere. Me, and me there. And of course it looks behind the normally sort of joyful and perfect image that people like to project behind the internet, and it's looking into all the insecurities of particularly teenage people, young people, and for example here you can see my tired and fat flesh prison. Derogatory ideas of identity and the body and all of the sort of the underbelly of the internet, then the insecurities that the perfection of Instagram breeds among, of course, particularly young people and teenagers. All of the negative effects, in fact, of the internet. And I find that this work actually coincides very, very well and is very timely, especially in relation to the Facebook whistleblower and how Facebook and other internet platforms are having a negative effect and are now proven to have a negative effect on young people and teenagers. Series of paintings by a British artist based in the Netherlands for several years, David Haynes, who is working in different media, particularly painting and also drawing, but also video. And these paintings here are actually painstakingly executed by the artist. So they are, of course, paintings made by hand. The complete opposite, of course, of the flatness of the screen. And they're paintings which are actually taken from sex cam sites. And they, of course, depict young men, young queer men, sort of looking into their phones and, of course, being completely absorbed by their communication via the internet with other young men on sex cam sites. And you can see how they're not looking at the viewer. They're completely, of course, embroiled in their own world, and what we see here is this kind of divorce from both reality but also from the environment in which they are in, which is actually an environment which is also an environment that doesn't correspond to their real environment, because what you see in the background are actually painted backdrops, so or printed backdrops. So we actually have no idea where they are. They exist in a kind of bubble. So they're in a bubble in their own head. They're in a bubble because they're, of course, completely engulfed in this digital communication, but they're also in a bubble in this space, this non-determinate space. So this is a work called The Lovers, also by Movropoulou, who made the Holy Trinity. And it's a series of works under the general title Family Portraits, which looks into how the screen, the tablet, the smartphone has entered our private spaces. And it's a series of photographs where you see the extent to which our computer or our smartphone or our tablet follows us into our most intimate domestic spaces. It's a series of portraits of the screen, mostly through these three apparatus that are found in the living room, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, everywhere, and the pervasiveness, of course, of this electronic apparatus, which is documented here in this series called Family Portraits.
So we just had a look at the different works, as explained by Katerina Gregos, of the exhibition. But that was before the exhibition really opened. So you saw the Centraal Museum was still installing some of the works. This afternoon, the exhibition's opened, and we're now going to watch an impression of the exhibition with public, as exhibitions are supposed to be. So enjoy.
to a human one.
Have a three-part opening. One part you already finished, it was at the Centraal Museum. This is part 2. We'll be here up until around 6, and then you can go in group or on your own to Het Huis Utrecht, where the big opening is, the festival opening, at around 8 o'clock. If you have reserved a ticket for dinner, you're welcome to eat with us at that house. I'm also very happy to be able to work with you, Katerina, to do this festival, to change a festival to change an exhibition into a festival. I'll leave it up to the expert to say everything about modern love. Please welcome Katerina Gregos.
Thank you. First of all, a few words of thanks to Arjon and the team here at IMPAKT for their support and their help. This is a project that actually goes back quite a while. This is the 3rd showing. It's a project that started in 2018 in the Museum für Neue Kunst in Freiburg. Then it traveled to the Tallinn Art Hall, then it's coming, well, then it's here, and finally it will go to Athens. So it's not only an exhibition about modern love, but it's also a long labor of love. And before I thank some more people, including Bart Rutten, who is here somewhere, director of the Centraal Museum, thank you for hosting us, Bart. And indeed, we're lucky enough to have 4 artists, which is quite a lot, considering it's still the pandemic. So Laura Cemin, I don't know where she is, which I'd like to introduce. Hannah Anbert, Dries Verhoeven, and Jonas Lund. So I have to thank the artists because without the artists, I forget. Who did I forget? I'm always forgetting someone. And Marijn Bril, who is performing tonight. You just arrived.
No, I was here, but I was not here.
Well, fashionably late. Anyway, so 5 artists actually, which is actually quite an achievement considering travel restrictions. But just to say, I will speak further tonight about the show. Just to say that this is a show that I've wanted to do for a long time. It was one of those exhibitions that stood on the shelf. I've always wanted to do a show about love, which I think is one of the most unfashionable things that one can do in the art world today. But of course, doing a show about love poses a lot of risks. You're in danger of being corny, cheesy, saccharine. So of course, the deal was how to do something that is relevant, of course, for the times that we're living in. And as I belong to this generation of people who remember life before the internet and before social media, it has been somewhat of an existential adjustment to also look into how all of these developments have influenced me as an individual, as well as how they've influenced society at large. So this is in fact an exhibition that looks into how the very, very rapid advent of the internet and social media have in fact reflected upon, affected social relations, and particularly the relations of the people nearest and dearest to us. Because there is no doubt that what is happening today is a sea change in the way that we perceive social relationships and social interaction. To me, the problem is not the internet itself. The internet is not good and it's not bad. It's how we use it and it's the politics behind it. And this show is, of course, about a long history of how capitalism has, of course, influenced social relations. And the subtitle of the exhibition, Cold Intimacies, Love in the Age of Cold Intimacies, is in fact a reference to a very important book by the sociologist Eva Illouz, with whom I'm going to be in conversation tomorrow night. And Eva has been examining how capitalism has affected social relations for more than 25 years. And of course, this has been exacerbated now with the advent of the internet and social media in a very, very, very accelerated way. And so I think that what has happened, and one of the reasons that this show is taking place, is the advent of the internet and social media and their kind of rapid consolidation into our lives has come very quickly. It has become normalized very quickly, and we haven't really thought about the real implications of this, from the loss of privacy to the loss of time. And so this is what this show is about. It's looking into the pluses and the minuses, the positives and the negatives of what the internet and social media do to our most intimate relationship. And I guess at the end of the day, there is a cautionary tale to be told, and that is that, you know, the internet brings with it enormous emancipatory capacities. At the same time, like everything else, there's a lot of dark narrative, subtexts and traps underneath. From, of course, the loss of privacy to the commodification of the body and so on and so forth. I will not say much more, but I just want to thank, of course, everyone who made this possible, all the institutions, the people who produced it, of course, the artists. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoy the festival. Maybe Arjen wants to give you some highlights, because we have a pretty cool program.
Yeah,
yeah.
We can agree on that.
Yeah.
There will be highlights in tonight's opening program at 8 o'clock. So I hope you'll all be there. We've prepared some videos. There will be some guests speaking. So yeah, join us at 8 at het house. And now the bar is open. You can talk with each other.
I hope you've enjoyed that impression of the exhibition. If you have the chance to come to Utrecht, please pass by, and if not, I hope you got an idea of the works that we're presenting here. In case you're watching home and you see you have any kind of problem with your browser, just quickly refresh and you can catch up with us again live. So next up, we will have a look at the opening talk by Arjen Dunnewind, the director of IMPAKT, and Katerina Gregos, where they will officially introduce the festival.